All right, hopefully everything is recording well, and we can get started. My name is Joel Wilson, and I'll be presenting for the Big Sky DevCon on GatsbyJS, static site generators, and their benefits to the future of web technologies. And then hopefully, if there's time at the end of this webinar, we can get into exactly how to get a Gatsby site up and running, pulling from an API or a headless content management system. So without any further ado, I suppose we should start. And to start, I'd like to apologize for the decorum behind me. I'm currently visiting family here in Helena and trying to keep my distance as best as possible in the garage. So you get to see kind of the clutter that my parents might have at their house. But anyway, let's dive into this presentation. So basically, trying to familiarize you with GatsbyJS, static site generators, and then go step by step through how easy it is through terminal command line to be able to set up your own Gatsby installation and then hopefully get it hosted if we don't run into any hitches. So let's go and dive into it. First, let's go over a quick overview of what Gatsby is before we definitely get into what static site generators are. So Gatsby is a JavaScript-based static site generator, meaning that it uses JavaScript. Actually, the repository itself is written in TypeScript, but it leverages JavaScript to be able to statically generate web pages for people to be able to view online. And so the way that it works is that it uses Node.js to take code and then compile it into pre-built HTML and CSS and then host that at whatever delivery network you might or host that you might see fit. And I'll go into kind of the nitty-gritty of that on the next slide and the following ones after that. And so React is the library of choice that they used for its HTML kind of templating language. And so it allows for you to use reusable components and scatter them across your site, or rather your code as necessary. And so not only are you able to use JavaScript and React in a live kind of development environment, but once you go to build it, it uses Node.js in order to create these statically built HTML and CSS files that are blazingly fast, as they would like to advertise on their own website. Gatsby does like to say that blazing fast websites, and it touts its blazing fast speeds as far as page speed insight tests through Google Go or even Chrome's own Lighthouse scores. And we can take a look at some screenshots that we can get from it working like that out of the box, which is a big boon for SEO or search engine optimization as well. And then to kind of harp on like the saliency of Gatsby itself, we can see that they had a $28 million Series B funding not 2 months ago in May 2020. And so it seems like the rest of the world or the rest of the tech community is starting to catch on to exactly how important this technology might be for the future of web generation and the speed of it, as well as like kind of the ecosystem that it provides. So let's get into exactly what static site generators are. So there are a lot of libraries or libraries based on languages that are in this space. Specifically, you can compare it with Hugo, which is based on the Go language released by Google in the last decade or so. You can look at Jekyll, which runs on Ruby or Ruby on Rails, I believe. Next.js, which is, I think, the most direct competitor with Gatsby here. That is still based on React, which is, of course, a JavaScript framework. And it allows you to not only statically generate pages, but also I think Next.js gives you a little more leeway in being able to make server calls as well. And I'll kind of get into what that means here probably in the next bullet point. And then also Nuxt.js, I think, is a direct clone of Next.js, but just leveraging Vue if you have a preference to that framework. And then finally Go templates, which is similar to Hugo, based on Go, and allows you to kind of put all of that out there pretty cleanly. And so what all of this is kind of based on, or the idea behind it, is that it's called like the jam stack, which is using JavaScript APIs and then also markup or markdown files, right? And so that means that all of your coding, all of the logic can be taken care of in JavaScript and then outputted in JSX in order to be compiled into HTML files. You can use APIs to be able to leverage whatever kind of technology you might want to sew into it, be it like MailChimp or HubSpot or something like that if you needed internet marketing, or you can also do e-commerce kind of integrations as well via whatever API might be available to you in this Jamstack. And then of course markup, which consists of however you want to pull your content or provide your content for your technology stack as it goes, right? So a lot of people might use markdown files, which are local to your machine and then get compiled at build time. A lot of people use headless content management systems, which would include things like Contentful, or even WordPress itself can be used as a headless content management system. So the benefits of using a Jamstack like this are veritable, but a couple of them being is the first is that you would have minimal operations, right? Like the amount of round trips that a browser needs to make in order to show the data to you as you're accessing a website or a domain is severely decreased by using static site generators. Ideally, all you would need to do is make one request, and then the statically built HTML and CSS would be available to you. And this is not to say that you would be precluded from using any sort of dynamic JavaScript. You would be able to do that as well. And then the scripts are just injected on the page as part of kind of like the API part of this Jamstack. And then as I continue to harp on the great performance out of the box that static site generators provide, right? Like as long as you have pre-built HTML and CSS, it gets read quickly and directly by the browser. But in addition to that, because there are no server calls being made to local servers or distributed servers, you can actually distribute your pre-built files on content delivery networks and make them easily accessible and even more speedy for your users to be able to access. Furthermore, a Jamstack allows you, or a statically generated site allows you for lower costs, meaning that there is no database for you to maintain, no security of that database to maintain, and you can kind of rely on cloud-hosted services such as like Surge, or I think Netlify, or even down to GitHub pages if you were so inclined. And you can basically off-put all of the work that was previously required for maintaining servers onto them, and then have a wonderfully peace of mind, basically, when it comes to those type of things. Furthermore, because it is just static HTML and CSS, it also provides an amount of backward compatibility because there aren't new languages that need to be parsed or features that need to be sought out by old browsers. And so these things can be kind of backward compatible and provide a certain amount of longevity to the code that you newly create in a way. And then finally, it allows for version control. Basically, you can have like one master branch of your repository as you would need, and update that, and then that can be pushed to CDNs, content delivery networks, where your code might be hosted, and then that gets built and pushed live. And so it allows for version control, it allows for easier debugging, it allows for teams to be able to collaborate on the same website at the same time without any sort of the overhead that used to be seen in those spaces and using those technologies before. So I think the benefits of it are quite large, actually. And so to get an understanding of what goes down with Gatsby, let's take a look at some of the better features that Gatsby might be able to provide in this space as a static site generator, right? As I said before, Gatsby is built on React, and so using reusable components, you can create anything from like navigation reuse components to layout components to templated components, even down to like components that you would be injecting into your head, such as search engine optimization things and OG graph tags that you could be putting out into the world like that. Furthermore, it uses GraphQL, which goes pretty much hand in hand with React because it is also created by the same organization. And so Gatsby gives you like a nicely accessible data layer there to be able to kind of browse through the markdown that you are pulling from in the content in a way that you would be able to easily and dynamically query it at build time when your pages are being built by the node server. And that provides not only like a wonderful graphic user interface that's easy to understand and then copy and paste into your code, but also GraphQL, which I think is an amazing query language. Furthermore, I think that Gatsby offers a rich plugin ecosystem, meaning that there are official Gatsby plugins that are written by not only the creators of Gatsby itself, but also contributors to there. And then there are also community plugins that are made available for whatever kind of use case or problem that you would want to solve in that space. And so we can take a look at the page itself right now. Hopefully it's coming up in the browser here. But on the left, I'll make this a little bit bigger. On the left, you can see ways for you to source from the file system. So this makes your file system a little bit accessible via GraphQL. We've got React Helmet, which is a plugin that allows you to inject scripts or meta tags into the head of your HTML documents. We've got the Sharp image library that's made available, Gatsby image, which allows for lazy loading and blur up effects for whatever images that you might want to include. So that makes your site that much faster to be able to leverage that technology. Furthermore, a TypeScript support. They've got offline support for you to make a progressive web app that is then downloadable and able to be used offline. Of course, there's support for Sass, styled components, and whatever kind of styling library or patterns you are most comfortable with. Sitemap generators, and so many more, right? Like so many more plugins that you can choose from that make your life as a developer a little bit easier when it comes to creating websites quickly and efficiently. So the plugin ecosystem alone is something that I would definitely tout as an advantage that Gatsby has over other static site generators that are out there. Furthermore, as I mentioned in the last slide, there is support for headless CMSs, right? So things like Contentful or even WordPress, which exposes a JavaScript object notation to JSON endpoint for you. You can start pulling from that at build time. So you basically pull it into the data layer of Gatsby, and then it injects that dynamically into the pages that you build or the templates that you build. And then when you build it using your node server, it takes all of that content, puts it together, and spits out static HTML pages for you, which is quite wonderful in comparison to what is usually done with a WordPress site, which would be to get the template, the PHP templates up, and then start querying the WordPress database for all of the individual pieces of content that need to fill it out. Instead, when you visit the site, it is right there, which is exactly the kind of the point of static site generators. Furthermore, not only do they have a rich plugin ecosystem, Gatsby also has hundreds of starter themes that are not only official, but also community contributed. And so these are things that can get you off the ground, either if you're looking for a certain look and feel, or a certain component package like Material UI, or any other sort of thing like that. Those come pre-built into it. And so you can see there's one that uses Netlify CMS. We've got default starters here, more advanced starters if you want to tinker around with it under the hood. Of course, minimal starters, and more and more and more. Things for like TypeScript support, even e-commerce to that extent, right? Like you can still, using APIs, leverage e-commerce and have a blazing fast e-commerce web presence like that. And so I would definitely encourage you to go through this list of Gatsby starters and figure out kind of what they offer and what might work for you if you wanted to replace your clunky old website with something like that, right? But furthermore, when you're using Gatsby, it's really wonderful because it kind of offers two environments for you to work in. The first is a development environment that listens for file changes and then hot reloads those file changes as you make them. And so, for example, if you're working on the home page and you make a style change in the CSS of the document and save it, then of course you can see that evidently in the browser as it goes. And then they also have their statically built environment, which is hosted at, so these are local host addresses that are in the slide. So at localhost 8000, when you're developing, you can see those hot reloadings happen. And then if you do choose to build your static HTML as you would want, you can then serve it at a local address in order to see how it might operate at runtime, or rather when a user visits your website before you actually do serve it to a cloud hosting provider. And I think that's quite powerful. Furthermore, there's a GraphQL Explorer out of the box. And so once you are pulling from your content management system, however you would like, there's a really handy way of expanding and collapsing all of the kind of nodes that you could query using GraphQL, and then you just straight copy that code and paste it wherever you would want. Not only do they allow you to do it kind of statically, but there is also a React hook that comes with Gatsby out of the box that allows you to use static queries and kind of inject those wherever you would need in your components rather than in your pages. And we can take a closer look at that if there is time at the end of the presentation. Furthermore, on the right, you can see right out of the box, depending on the starter that you choose or the hosting provider that you choose, you can see that that it is decidedly blazing fast. That in a lot of use cases, it scores like a 90 to a 100 on the Lighthouse test, which is Chrome's own test of speed, which assesses, I guess, those four metrics that you might be able to see, one being performance, the other being accessibility, best practices, and then search engine optimization. And so right out of the box, it's a really wonderful tool to get you where you need to be with kind of modern web technologies. Furthermore, it allows you to have, it is a single page application, and so it leverages React Router in order to dynamically route people throughout your website, but that still allows for some wonderful features out of the box, which would be link prefetching. So when a page loads, once it's loaded completely, then any links that are above the fold or any links that a user might be more inclined to click on, those start preloading in the background, and then when they click on them, that's an even faster boost that you would get to be able to navigate around your site. And I think that all of that is pretty gangbusters overall. So examples of Gatsby plugins we kind of already looked at a little bit when we visited the site itself. But of course, just to kind of clarify, you can use Node Package Manager or even Yarn. It's got support for both of those. And then furthermore, we've got the Gatsby Image plugin, which I kind of explained the benefits of. Not only does it allow for dynamic image sizes and optimizes towards that, but it also allows for the blur up, which kind of, until the image is loaded, it does some analysis of the image beforehand and gives you blurrier and less blurry pictures until the image is fully loaded. Furthermore, we've got Gatsby Source File System, which allows you to pull from your local computer in order to create the files that you would then build and serve on your decided hosting provider. And then Gatsby Plugin Manifest, which allows to have progressive web app support, which is also another boon that Google, at least when it's crawling some of its websites, looks for when optimizing, or rather when presenting its links in whatever order it does in its search engine results. And then also React Helmet is a wonderful tool that kind of allows you to inject meta tags or even schemas into the head of your document that benefit you SEO wise. So like a good example, kind of, if you look at the code here of someone using React Helmet in order to create their own kind of SEO component that then can be placed on every single page. You can pass it whatever props you would want in that circumstance, and then basically return these meta tags as well as other more geared towards SEO specific Facebook, Twitter, Google bot tags that you can then leverage for better search engine results as far as your business or organization might need. And furthermore, I will make these slides available after the presentation, so you can take a look at all of the links that I have linked in the slides, because I think that they are pretty good resources that tell you a little more about the Jamstack, a little bit more about static site generators, and their benefits. Furthermore, when we look at Gatsby starter theme examples, of course, I showed you the page and kind of went over a little bit of what the community has contributed to Gatsby. But of course, we have WordPress that allows you to leverage the JSON endpoint that WordPress sometimes exposes, contentful starters, Netlify content management starters, e-commerce starters, or even if you use Amazon Web Services, Amplify, all of this you can get started in kind of the blink of an eye, and it clones the GitHub repository for you locally on your machine. And then just by a couple of keystrokes, you would be able then to see those things live and start customizing to your own needs, which is really kind of cool. And so let's dive into the project structure of a Gatsby site and kind of what all of these different things do. And so at the root, actually I'll skip to the second bullet point. In the source of your file and the source of your repository, of course, you're going to have the things that you're kind of used to seeing. If you have used React in the past, right? You would have a components folder that would contain all of the reusable components that you would try to put into your pages. Such as, I guess on the right, you can kind of see an example of that, which would be like the header, if you had a navigation in the header, or even just a header that you wanted to include, the images, if you wanted an image library support or to have those going on, post titles, text, I think typography plays really well with Gatsby itself. And so you can have kind of more customized components that then are able to be reused via the magic of React. Furthermore, you have a static folder where if you wanted to serve static assets, such as like PDFs, images, or any sort of other file type, you could drop them in there. You have your images folder that hopefully contain the images that you're going to refer to relatively wherever you would want to use them in your project structure. Styles is another kind of source level folder that can contain different style sheets or one large style sheet if you're so inclined to do that. And then you can include that at the top of whatever document you would want, either via React Helmet or even via an import statement in one of the above files that I'm about to talk about. And then the next folder in there is Pages. And Pages is a wonderful folder for Gatsby to use, because in the API at build time, Gatsby looks for files in the Pages directory, and any file in there is automatically created as its own page when you're building your website. So for example, in Pages, you are required to have a 404 page and an index page, the index page being served at the root of your domain. So for example, submittable.com is the index page, and then submittable.com/solutions would be solutions.js that we would include in the Pages directory. If you had a contact.js, that would then be served at yourdomain.com/contact, and so on and so forth. So that's really easy to follow and an easy way for you to be able to kind of get your ducks in a row as far as keeping track of where all of your pages are going and what's being done. Furthermore, there is a templates directory that you can refer to in your Gatsby node file, and I'll get to what that does, but basically creating templates for you to be able to dynamically hydrate with different types of content that you might be feeding to it. So, I mean, for example, if you had, you know, like an image gallery, and then you wanted an individual page for each of those images, you would probably go to templates and then make the dynamic query happen so that those templates could be that template could be hydrated with each individual image, and so on and so forth, whatever your heart's content would be. And then, of course, there's a cache file, which speeds up the development process for you when you're working in the development environment, and a public directory, which also sits at the root of your repository, and that is created after you build your static HTML files. That is where all of those sit, so that they can be then uploaded to wherever your hosting provider, and then be read from that folder. These 4 files that are at the top of it, though, at the project root, we've got Gatsby Browser, Gatsby Config, Gatsby Node, and Gatsby SSR. And I'll just go through those kind of one by one and tell you what their importance is to a Gatsby project. So Gatsby Browser is kind of where you are allowed to leverage Gatsby's browser APIs. And there are a lot that you can see on the right here. But basically, they are hooks that allow you to perform whatever action you would want in Node when a user takes a certain action in their browser, or when a browser takes a certain action. So for example, you can see on route update. So when someone goes from one page to another, you can trigger something such as like an update to Google Analytics to send a page view. You can trigger a cookie placement if you were so inclined, or something like that. There's also on-client entry, which is where a hook that exists for when a person lands, or a user lands on your site to begin with. And then other kind of error catching, so on route update delayed is another one that, for example, and then wrap page element would allow you to kind of give providers in that certain circumstances, or layout components if you never wanted the headache of putting those on all of your individual pages. It allows you to kind of have that granular control over what's going on when the browser is making changes, or when the browser is loading the documents as you're serving them. Furthermore, we've got Gatsby config, Gatsby config, Gatsby config file, which is more or less where your plugins are going to live. So not only does it allow you to have your site metadata, which includes your site title, the domain of your site, and then any other metadata that you want to maybe associate with it, but also allows you to have plugins, an array of plugins from the plugin repository that we saw earlier, where you can specify not only the plugins that should be used by Gatsby when it's compiling, but also where you can specify options for those plugins, such as if you were using, MailChimp, you would put in your login credentials, or if you were using Google Analytics, you could put in your tracking code, or tracking codes, tracking identification numbers, things like that. And then furthermore, there are other APIs that are exposed in that file that allow you more granular control over the configuration of your Gatsby project. Gatsby Node is another one that's quite powerful, and basically what that does is you can specify which template in your template directory you would like certain queries to start hydrating at build time, right? So they obviously have create pages API there, create pages statefully. So if you did want to pass certain information statically in the state to be accessed in the template file, you could do so. And then the event hooks that happen in the build process as well, that when it creates a page, when it sees a node, when it's bootstrapping its environment during build time, you would be able to hook into those with any sort of like custom functions or custom code that you would want to stick in there, which allows for, of course, more granular control over what you're doing, and more customization of your Gatsby project. And then the final one here is Gatsby SSR, which stands for server-side rendering, of course. And basically, if you wanted kind of like a custom configuration, like a Webpack configuration of where certain elements should be placed in your page, you can do that, right? So like the head components, when you're injecting it either via a plugin or via React Helmet, You can get those head components, deal with them how you would want to, and then replace the head components. And the same could be said for the body when it's being rendered as well. You can hook into it and add maybe a footer on the pre-body components, and so on and so forth. And then you can even replace the body components themselves once you have that amount of custom code. This is to say also that these files are not required by Gatsby by any means. The starters do work out of the box, and some of them have custom configurations inside of them, but you can also leave them out of your project, and it would do the default that Gatsby does, which is still, in my opinion, quite wonderful. And so that's just kind of a tour of the file structure that Gatsby gives you, and then kind of the ease with which you can create it. So for the second part of this presentation, let's kind of get dirty with some code and see exactly how to use it, and see if we can get a site up and running before the end of the presentation. So if you're familiar with the terminal, I'll just kind of go step by step through how to do this. So obviously, the first step would be to install the Gatsby command line interface, which is the Gatsby CLI. You can use npm to install it globally, and then that would make it available to you wherever it is that you would want to use it, or create a project in whatever directory you would be navigating to in your terminal. And so in my infinite wisdom, I decided to reinstall it here. So with the slow internet that is in my garage, we're going to enjoy being able to watch it as it does that. But as I go through it, we can go over kind of like some of the common commands that you would use with the Gatsby command line interface. And I think I'm going to jump ahead really quickly, so ignore this slide for the time being. But we have it here. If you can see the image, that basically we have a couple of commands. One being Gatsby develop, and as I said earlier, that creates a development environment for you to be able to hot reload at when you investigate it at localhost 8000. We've got Gatsby build, which creates the public directory for you, and then inside that public directory, all of the built static HTML and CSS files. We've got Gatsby info, which will be a verbose display of any sort of bugs or errors that you might be running into either in the development or the build process. We've got Gatsby clean, which removes the cache, the .cache file that sits at the root of your project structure, so as to be able to address any sort of errors there, or instead of rehydrating, completely hydrate once again when you go to build your project. You can create a read, edit, print line if you were so inclined to do it with your project. And then we've got Gatsby new, which creates a new Gatsby site at whatever directory that you specify. But then also after it would be optional after that, you could specify one of the Gatsby starters, whichever one you would want, and it will clone that GitHub repository for you at that directory that you specified, and everything is great. Nonetheless, we'll just assume that works. So Gatsby info, we can see what's kind of going on here with Gatsby. So we've got, of course, that kind of thing going on. And so let's get into creating kind of a new Gatsby site. So I have all of the common CLI commands here that are linked to a GitHub README file that I kind of have had the shorthand for, right? Like, so GB for Gatsby build, GD for Gatsby develop, GS for Gatsby serve, or even Gatsby clean, build, serve, those type of things. And it makes it just kind of, if you're doing it all the time, a little bit easier for you. And then I suppose it should be noted when you are building your static HTML and CSS files during the build process. Obviously, it uses Node to build them, and because Node is not a browser environment, the window object is not going to be available to you during the build process, so you need to protect against that, right? Like whether you want to confirm it's the client side by making sure that the window is an object, or rather the type of window would be object, or you can use optional chaining, which is a new feature, I think, in whatever ES version that we're using now, where you can just basically put a question mark before it and then access any sort of object notation that would come after that. So let's talk about creating a new Gatsby site. So might as well do it straight up to do something for the Big Sky DevCon. I think I did a typo there, BSDC, Big Sky DevCon. So we'll just clone this right now. And I did notice that Big Sky DevCon itself is running on WordPress. So we might as well find that website and start pulling from there, and then we can display all of the kind of posts and pages that Big Sky DevCon uses, right? So I'll just show you for reference what's going on here. We've got Big Sky DevCon. Oof, it's loading slow. So we'll use this command here, which is Gatsby new, create a new Gatsby site at the directory bsdc-wordpress, and then use this WordPress starter that Gatsby Central, I suppose, was so kind to provide for us, right? So I'll show you kind of the GitHub repo, or we might as well explore it while it's doing the thing. So here we go. Gatsby new, easy. We're in the terminal, in whatever kind of directory you would want to be in. You do press enter, and then of course it's going to create the directory and then start cloning into this repository, right? Very easy and kind of effortless to get off the ground. And then it tells you that it's even installing the packages there that would be dependencies, right? So here we've got the Gatsby WordPress starter and a README if you wanted to be so inclined as to look at kind of like the guts of it or the internals of it. But anyway, here we have Big Sky DevCon, which is a wonderfully built site. It has, looks like 3 kind of pages here, and then the schedule itself might be posts, but we will see once we get into the querying of the site itself. Just for shorthand here, there are the WordPress JSON endpoints that are exposed, or post pages, media, amongst others, right? But I think what we're going to be most interested in is the posts and pages, and we can kind of look at how WordPress gives the markdown and how Gatsby might be able to pull it, right? So obviously we have some JSON here. Looks like there might be like a total of 8 to 10 posts, and we can kind of get not only the date for it, the link to it. Oh, look at that, keynote speaker Michael Fitzgerald, who is the CEO of Submittable at the moment. The categories of the post, and then the content itself. So of course, we're going to be pulling in kind of the raw HTML, and hopefully there will be a parser in the repository itself. So that would be easy to do. And so once again, I'll apologize for my slow internet here as it installs all of the necessary packages through Node Package Manager. So what we've done is that. So we've created a new Gatsby site, and in that directory, as I said before, it's optional that you would start with a starter. If you do not, you'll start with the most basic Gatsby starter that they offer, and then you can customize from there. So you can even leave that off of the tail of that command. And then once it has installed, we're of course going to go into the directory itself. Let me fix that typo. Big Sky DevCon. We're going to go into the directory itself. I think we're installing the dependencies right now, so we can skip that step. And then basically we're going to go into Gatsby develop and see if this is working kind of right out of the box for us. Fingers crossed that it might be. So as we verify the installation of the packages, we can then dive right in. Great. So we've got the SDC WordPress, and of course, to give you an idea of the project structure there, as I said before, we've got the source directory, the static directory, we've got Gatsby config, Gatsby node, and then as you can see, Gatsby SSR and the other one have been left off because they're not necessary to this project, right? And so what we would want to do now is, well, just to give you an idea of kind of what it looks like inside the source directory, easy peasy, right? We've got components, image, pages, and templates. So what we're going to do here is Gatsby develop, and that should start a development environment for us at localhost 8000. Although, I'll let you know, I did this already in a dry run, and it's going to throw an error for us, but we will see kind of why that is in a second. Ooh, as my computer overheats as well. Yikes. Let me get something under it so that it can run that command here. Unless for some odd reason it is not choosing to do that. But I guess while that development command is running, we can also take a look at kind of the code that's behind it using any sort of code editor you might want. Here we are in Visual Basic. So to explore the project structure again, we've of course got the source. We've got static image directories for things that might want to be served there. And then we've got our components. So we've got content, features, layout, nav bar, pagination, and so forth. But let's check back in. So in the Gatsby develop, of course, we're getting some sort of errors here. And perhaps once we visit localhost 8000, we might be able to figure out what those errors might be. But as it builds, we can see. So of course, it tells you you can visit localhost 8000 in order to see this hot reloading development environment. So we might as well hop over to the browser and put that in there. And easy peasy, actually. It's working right out of the box. And so we've got some hello worlds going on, or rather, nope, I screwed up. We need to change the Gatsby configuration. So the Gatsby config file is using, of course, Gatsby source WordPress here. And right now it's pulling from wp-demo gatsbycentral.com. So we might as well go and get the Big Sky DevCon here. Let's make sure it's in the right, it is not. So we'll do bigskydevcon.org and just drop it right on in there. So any changes that are made to the config files, you do need to restart the development environment. It won't hot reload that way. But let's go ahead and do that. So in order to, of course, stop the thing, you would just press Control-C, and then we've got Gatsby develop one more time. And let's see if it will pull in the posts from the JSON endpoint of Big Sky DevCon's WordPress installation. And I think, spoiler alert, it is not going to work because of the way some of the queries are set up. But we can easily troubleshoot that as we see where the problem might arise. The problem itself, I guess, without further ado, I'll tell you is that the Big Sky DevCon WordPress site does not use tags. There are no tagged posts or pages. I think they are categorical in its own right. And so this Gatsby starter looks for tags and makes the GraphQL query on something that doesn't exist. And when that happens, it's going to throw an error and not allow us to view the site until that error in the GraphQL queries and therefore in the data layer is resolved. And so hopefully we'll be able to develop this and be able to figure out where those errors are occurring. Spoiler alert, it's going to be, I think, in the Gatsby node file here. There we go. So we've got 404 not found for a couple of these routes that it is kind of querying, but I think most importantly, it uses React, of course, and that's going to be able to display more verbose or more descriptive errors in the browser when you visit it. Unless I completely screwed up, which is entirely possible. There we go. And of course, here we go. So we've got a couple of GraphQL errors that are coming because we are querying for the field all WordPress tags on the queries. And of course, because tags don't exist on the website, it's going to throw it. But the easiest thing to do would be to just basically delete this tag template file itself and any sort of other files where the query is being made, and we can then get running it off the ground quite easily. So as I said before, in the source directory, here's your template files, and then we've got the tag file here, or the tag template, and it would be kind of querying for the wrong things, so we might as well just delete that file. Yeah, and then as it continues to build its development bundle, I apologize for slow internet and hot computer here in my parents' garage once again. But once it does start loading here we go. So we get a failure to compile because tags is not being defined in the tag template, right? So easy enough. We've deleted that file, but once again, tags is not defined in the tag template. So we need to go in and make sure that that's the case. So for some odd reason, it is still querying that. The problem might also be in the node file. So here's our Gatsby node file, which is using the create pages API to return pages or templates, or rather pages based on templates for all of these different queries that are being made, right? So we've got all WordPress pages, all WordPress posts, all WordPress categories, and then here we go, all WordPress tags. So it does, with a promise, create or make the query, and then with the result of the query, it tries to find that tag template. So all we need to do is comment that out and let it continue to waterfall down, and hopefully that does what we need to do. But once again, any changes to those configuration files do need to reinitiate the development cycle. And usually this takes, 5 to 10 seconds, but I think because of the heat and slowness of my computer at the moment, presenting and recording a presentation, it takes a little bit more time. So we can watch kind of the output that it gives you, which is very nice. Going step by step as to what it is doing, where it's querying, and then the pages that it is building and how. And it's a very handy dandy thing for us to be able to explore using our command line as well as Gatsby itself. So as it sources and transforms those nodes from the Gatsby node file, outputting it into template files, and then of course you can have also static pages, maybe a page for your home. But this kind of demonstrates the power of being able to use WordPress as more or less just a front, or rather a headless content management system, and simply as its back end, rather than as an entire content management system as it's traditionally used in the world. And this could mean a lot of implications. You could create like a subdomain of your backend, like admin.yourdomain.com, and then have yourdomain.com be like pulling from that subdomain where WordPress might be installed, and have its front end locked, blocked, or shut down. But as we continue to wait for that to go, hopefully what we're going to be able to do is in the same kind of demo environment, in the same demonstration, be able to see these pages at the top and then some of the posts therein. But it's good news that we're getting fewer red messages and more green messages, meaning that I think perhaps these errors are being taken care of. So still in the post template, it looks like it's trying to query for the tag. So we just need to go back into the templates, go into post here, and then just kind of remove any reference to tags out of it, right? So there, it would not only be included as a prop here, or be expected, but also down here in the GraphQL query itself, we can comment that out, and then hopefully it will rebuild for us, hot reloading, and then once we visit our page, we get it working out of the box, right? So here we have querying the WordPress endpoint. We have home, schedule, sponsors. It's not how I remember it. Or I guess this must be, yeah. So we have the team. We can go to these pages and see exactly how it's being created. The speakers of 2019. Here we are in very basic markdown or markup files. See the speakers from last year, and then of course a home page that you might have to parse through and do a little bit of work if you wanted it to be so customized, right? But so those are the pages that are statically provided, and then Caldi is, I think, the brand name of whoever created this Gatsby starter, and that's very easy to hunt down, right? So at the moment, we're looking at our index file, so we might as well just see where that is, right? So we've got a 404 page, so it looks like we're not even hosting an index file there. So we'll go to the pages here and see kind of what's going on. So there's a layout component that must be wrapping the entire thing here. So we've got the page template that is its own component here, and then of course the page that is then exported at the bottom is using the layout template. So let's just kind of investigate that layout template and see what we're doing here. So we've got this helmet, and then the nav bar, might as well hunt it down. And in the nav bar, you can see that we are importing the logo from the static image directory. So I'm just going to go ahead and pop in into the image directory our own logo here. Bada bing, bada boom. Copy that path and slam it in here relatively, or rather relative to the place of the component. And then save the file. And here's hoping it hot reloads to have Big Sky DevCon up there in the corner. And then we are off as far as looking at the posts that are coming from Big Sky DevCon's website, looking at the pages, and really just getting off the ground that quickly and easily. And if it weren't for the slow internet, as well as the hotness in this garage, I think that process probably could have taken us, between 1 minute and 5 minutes. And that's just really, I think, demonstrating kind of the power of Gatsby in its bootstrap ability. And so that's in reference, I guess, to this slide here. And then another really cool thing is, of course, there is a Surge command line, or Surge, which is a cloud hosting provider that I think we can use in order to possibly get this site out on the net, perhaps in the next couple of minutes. And so, of course, we have Surge here, which I have already installed their command line interface, right? So before anything, what we would want to do probably is build this website, right? So we would do Gatsby build. And what that's going to do, and probably take some time, is generate all of the static files that we have been talking about kind of for this entire presentation. And so it's going to take all of the components, all of the templates, all of the pages, and put them into this public directory here. which then, of course, your statically generated files would look like this, right? You have your index file, and then it's just straight HTML with uh, all of the meta tags or any of the helmet information that you might want to include. And so as it builds it, it tells you all of the steps that it's going through here. It loads the plugins, deletes the cache in order for it to be able to repopulate it, copies over the files, pulls from the markdown or headless CMS that you would want to grab, and then, of course, I think you would probably need to do some tweaking if you wanted this to obviously work perfectly without any sort of errors, but here we go, just doing it quickly. And so once it's built, you'll be able to either, what we're going to try to do is of course serve it from the net, or you can serve it locally by writing Gatsby serve, and that would allow us to be able to view it at our local host address to see exactly how it would look when it's out in the wild like that. So we might as well do that first, because it's quick. It basically just makes the index file that's located in your public folder available at that address. And then we can get into kind of seeing if we can host it through Surge. And another spoiler alert, I tried to do that earlier today and it did not work. So I'm not the most optimistic, but I'll give you an idea kind of how this integrates well with cloud hosting providers such as Surge or Netlify, which is what we at Submittable do use. Great, and then it gives you, well, as it goes, when it was building it, I suppose, in the file, whatever file that is, I think blog post, or in the post template, we're still, I think, referencing tags somewhere. There we go. And so, of course, we've got tags here, which is undefined. So you might as well just comment that out of the code, resave it, unfortunately, and make sure that everything else is working just fine. And then rerun the build command, which is going to take us another minute and a half here. But to give you an idea, we've got Surge, which if you do some of the Gatsby, they have kind of walkthroughs. They've got tutorials that's split into 4 parts, and I would recommend going through it if you're a kind of a beginner at it. At the end of their 4th tutorial, they recommend using Surge to just kind of get you off the ground in a generic hosting environment that then will allow you to post your very basic sites to it. And then I would say if you're doing this on an enterprise level, of course you would want to get a little bit more involved with who you're hosting and how. So once again, we'll go through the build process. Because I didn't preface this build with a Gatsby clean, here's hoping that it's able to read from the cache a little bit faster and populate that, and only rebuild the differences, which would be us commenting out like the tag in that post's template. Need to get some ice for my computer or something like that. It is certainly having a conniption about the heat out here. And so once that gets built, as I said before, we can visit it at localhost 9000 as opposed to localhost 8000, which is where the hot reloading development environment goes. Unfortunately, when it is serving the files, you don't have the luxury of hot reloading, but that's obviously because we are looking at the built HTML files rather than the dynamic JavaScript files or React files that it's trying to build from. And then hopefully Once all of that gets done, it would take us another 3 or 4 minutes here to be able to wrap it up. Hopefully, get it out there on Surge. When you create your Surge account, you might be prompted in the terminal here to be able to create it in the terminal, and then I think go into your email and confirm the creation of your account. But it's easy. So here we go. No errors logged, and of course it is built in about 150 seconds or so. And then you just need to say Gatsby serve here, and it'll let you know that the public directory is being served at localhost 9000. But it looks like I'm already doing something there. So we'll just do 9001. So just go ahead and copy that and then throw it down, and it's going to look very similar to, or almost exactly the same to the development environment. But as you saw that, I mean, because it is being served locally, it loaded really quickly, but also just loads quickly because we're accessing the direct HTML. And easy peasy lemon squeezy, we're looking at kind of like the Big Sky DevCon website right off the ground. And so you can get rid of that server. And then of course, I already have Surge installed as far as a global command line interface goes. So we can Surge log in here. Here's hoping that this just might work. Great. And then once you have a login going, you can run the Surge command again, and it'll prompt you for how you want to set up this project, right? So obviously we're not serving from the source directory. We instead need to serve from the public directory there. Easy peasy. And then even you can customize your domain. So let's see if bigsky.devcon.surge.sh is going to work for us. And there it goes, uploading everything that we might need, taking all of the, I guess the only image would be the logo that we have, and then the rest of it is going to be pulled from the WordPress site when Surge builds it on their cloud hosting there. And so this just gives you an idea. And then here we are, bigsky.devcon.surge.sh. This is, I don't think, going to work, but perhaps a boy can dream. So we've got Big Sky DevCon, Surge SH. It looks like, there we go. Working right out of the box for you, hosted on the cloud. So, and loading, I would say, quite quickly, would be even quicker if my computer were not having the connection that it is. And everything is out there now in the open. How wonderful. So I guess to wrap up, right? That would be kind of the long and short of how quick it is to get started with a Gatsby starter, to start pulling from a custom endpoint how you would want to, and then to be able to push that to a cloud host and get it built and started right there online. I mean, it's wondrously fast, not only the development process, but also the loading of the page itself because of the internal technologies that Gatsby does use. Yeah, so to wrap up, Gatsby itself is a static site generator, obviously, one that I think is outstanding in its field, and one that I would recommend everybody kind of tool around with and figure out just exactly how powerful it might be on a personal, organizational, or enterprise level. The search engine optimization benefits that you get out of it, the speed benefits that you get out of it, and then also like just the ease of use that you receive from having a React-based development environment, and then all of the headache that's taken care of for you under the hood as Gatsby does its thing. So much encouraged to check it out. I appreciate you checking out this presentation. Of course, if you have any questions, you can probably get at me. I'll post my email along with the slides here, along with all of the links that are contained in the slides, and you can take a look at exactly what's going on. You can contact me if you have any questions about this presentation. and hopefully you have as much fun with the product itself as I do. So once again, I appreciate you attending this virtual conference, and I hope that you enjoy using it. Thank you.